Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today I'm going to be talking about the Houston Texans selection at number 2. As if you haven't heard and you're a Texans fan, I'm going to say what the hell's wrong with you, but if you're a big Texans fan, of course you've heard what happened today in the NFL draft, but I am here to talk about it, and let's go. The Houston Texans selected at number 2 overall, and I'm not going to talk about what they did at number 3 because I am doing that in a separate video. I want to talk about these guys separate and give some attention to both of those guys, Will Anderson and CJ Stroud. So we're going to do that. And so yeah, with the second overall pick, even though the Texans had some doubts about drafting a quarterback, if Bryce Young went at 1 and wanting to draft Will Anderson, which they obviously still got Will Anderson, the Houston Texans draft at 2 CJ Stroud from Ohio State. As a Texans fan, I am, not only for just this pick, but both picks, I am thrilled to the moon. I know I said I wouldn't talk about both picks, but I am not talking about the actual player. I'm just saying, both picks, I'm just thrilled to the moon as a fan. I mean, just the excitement is when I heard on that TV, and it's actually really hard because you get alerts on the TV. I don't know why, but TV's always so behind. And then these NFL insiders like Schefter and Ian Rappaport are always tweeting about it before you hear it on TV. So somehow I actually saw it on TV before I saw it on my phone or my tablet. And I usually always see it on the phone or the iPad than I do on the TV. Just because of, like with basketball games or football games, I'll know it's over before it's over. Because that's how behind the TV is behind, like 20 seconds or even maybe longer, I don't know. And it's sometimes, even tonight, sometimes I knew picks before it was announced. And thank God I kind of flipped, both phone and iPad when the pick was coming up. I'm like, I want to be surprised. And Stroud, I knew Stroud was coming up. I mean, we were going to draft a quarterback. Even though the Texans had doubts about it, we're going to draft a quarterback. And obviously, maybe they were planning on drafting a quarterback at 2 because ultimately their ultimate plan was trading for the 3rd overall pick. But getting into CJ as a player and what I think he will do for Houston, he's a phenomenal quarterback. There are concerns. And there were concerns for Bryce Young, obviously. His height was a concern. But really, with Bryce Young, his only concern was height. That was his only concern. He didn't have any other really flaws that I know of. But CJ Stroud, there are a couple of flaws. His football IQ, that's one thing that fans have worried about. I'm not concerned about it. He has a really accurate arm. He has a very strong deep ball. I think with some of the wide receivers on this, wide receiver core, with John Mechie, I think he'll have a really good chemistry with him. Robert Woods is a guy who likes to run deep routes as well. The Texans have a lot of deep route guys, like Noah Brown. I think Noah Brown will run some routes that Stroud did kind of run in Ohio with Ohio State. So I think Noah Brown is a guy that Stroud will like to throw the ball to a lot. I don't know about Nico Collins. I think all these wide receivers kind of fit Stroud's game and where he throws the ball to and where they're running. I know that might sound a little stupid, but I think these wide receivers actually really fit Bryce Young that are on this wide receiver core. And I think the Texans at some point in this draft, whether it's the 3rd round or it's the 4th round or even the 5th round, are going to address that wide receiver position again with drafting a wide receiver late in this draft, which he probably won't have a big effect to this offense, but I think the Texans would like to at least draft one wide receiver in this draft, whether it's in the 4th. I think they have 2 4th-round picks. They have 2 3rd-round picks. They have 1 5th-round pick. I think it's going to be in one of those 5 picks. They'll draft another wide receiver. So that's one good thing. Stroud has a really amazing deep ball. He has a really good accuracy. The only thing is football IQ, which that's not a concern for me, but that is a concern for others. So just getting to that there. But I'm so excited about CJ Stroud. I think he's going to be a good player. Here's a question, though. Is CJ Stroud opener? Is he the starter for game 1? Because it's expected that Anthony Richardson's probably not going to be the starter for game 1 for the Colts. Bryce Young isn't expected to be the game 1 starter for the did I say Colts? Yeah, I did say Colts. That's correct. With Anthony Richardson. It's projected that Bryce Young is not going to be the opening day starter for the Panthers. Andy Dalton's expected to start the season. That's already been announced, but I don't think Anthony Richardson. I think it's pretty much predictable that Richardson will not start the season. But Stroud, who was the second most ready, I think ultimately Bryce Young is the most ready quarterback in this year's draft. But I don't think the Texans are going to want to start either Mills or Case Keenum. I think Mills is going to get cut or traded, and most likely cut because, I mean, if we're being honest, who's going to take Davis Mills? So, I mean, if we think about this here, what's going on? Davis Mills leaves. Case Keenum's the only quarterback alongside CJ. I don't think the Texans are going to start Case, and I could be wrong, but I just don't think so. And I was thinking about it earlier. I'm like, maybe the Texans do a backup quarterback competition between Case Keenum and Davis Mills, but I also don't see that happening either, even if Mills played better than Keenum, because I think the Texans want to mentor with Keenum at the backup quarterback, and I don't think the Texans using another roster spot for a third-string quarterback with Case Keenum. I just don't see it happening for the Houston Texans. So I think Mills will most likely be traded or cut, and Case Keenum will either be the starter to start the season and will not be for long. It'll just be like Case starts for like the first game or two, and then Stroud comes in, makes his debut, or Stroud starts off right off the bat, and Case Keenum's his mentor and his backup. So I think that's going to be another interesting thing to see is what happens with when Stroud makes his first appearance as the Houston Texans starting quarterback. I'm excited for the future of the Texans with both draft picks they made tonight. I can't wait to talk about the Will Anderson in a separate video. Go check that one out. That will be posted after this one. So that's a video. If you guys enjoyed, let me know my thoughts on the CJ Stroud selection, and peace out. Go Texans.